I use the word revolution. It's a very charged word, and some people may have various definitions of it. Well, if you get the book System and Revolution right here, which I wrote actually when I was in France at the Paris Commune. Interesting enough, I was a hotel near there. But this book is a great book because it actually defines scientifically, from an engineering standpoint, what is the word system and what is revolution. And it gives you an incredible education that you really can't get at any university. It took me about 50 years to write this book. And one of the things I've done is we've sold tens of thousands of copies. I made this book absolutely free. Please get it because it'll really help you understand what is a robot, what is a human, and it'll give you the knowledge to actually be a human. But it'll explain to you what the word revolution is, so there's no mistakes about what I mean by that definition. You can get the free book. Go to vashiva.com/join, and it's free. You just have to pay shipping and handling. And by the way, our Truth, Freedom, and Health Warrior program, it's a program that I charge like $2,600 for. We're giving away a $2,500 scholarship. You have to charge something, otherwise you guys don't value anything. Just a weird human psychology. But then you as an adult can get it for $100, and then you can give it away to any child, anyone between the age of 13 to 18, for absolutely free. So we just want to get this knowledge out there. So let's have this conversation. John, when you hear the word robot, what do you think about it? I know you're a big Star Wars fan.
Well, the way I think about robots, and this might not be a correct definition, but this is sort of comes to mind to me, is I think of machines that are made to mimic human behaviors. I don't know if that's how accurate that is, but it could come from like, trying to replicate entire human behaviors, like make machines like C-3PO or something who can like look sort of humanoid, like a human body, and act like a human, or it can be something like an R2-D2 where it doesn't look human, but it can do a lot of the same things. Or maybe it can just be like an arm in a factory that's meant to replicate like one specific repetitive motion or something. But that's sort of my understanding of what a robot is. It's something, whether it's an isolated repetitive motion or a whole range of tasks and processes. It's a machine that's meant to replicate some sort of human action or human interaction.
Yeah, so you're looking at it in a very practical way. You have a human being can do a whole array of actions, and then we have robots who can do robots that are used to make cars, or robots that can do a particular action. Let's ask our audience out there, maybe you can read, what do you guys think what a definition of a robot is? Put it in the chat and we'll post them up. What is your definition of a robot? So that's the question. Machine versus an organism. Okay, something that's different than an organism.
Doesn't necessarily need to be the difference whether it's a organic machine or an inorganic machine.
Right. So let's just get people's ideas. Joe Biden. So what's Joe Biden?
I'm gonna keep that up.
Okay.
He definitely has the whole input-output thing going. Something goes into the little earpiece in his ear and he says stuff.
Right.
And sometimes
we'll talk about that. A lot of people don't know the open system. What else I'm going to say? Program machine without consciousness. Very, very interesting, Stephanie. Very interesting definition. That's a good one. What else we got?
Most people walking around today.
So Verminard Michael says most people walking around today, zombies. That's Michael's definition of a robot. A machine that does a task. Similar to what John, you said.
Dependent on outside resources. That's interesting. But that, I think that organic organisms also depend on outside resources. We just have to go and get them.
Yeah. Machine, metals, technology that replicate what humans do. All right. So it looks like there's sort of ability to do work anything. All right, John. So I think what we're seeing is a bunch of people are saying a program machine, something artificial, something that does what a human being can do, a mechanistic operation, right? And then you have other philosophical things people are putting up there, like Joe Biden, machine, something that's programmed, consciousness, right? Built by man, not God. Okay. So to support this conversation, to give you a little bit of background, to me, this is a very interesting area because for probably about 23 years, I did research in what you today call AI. It was called pattern recognition. And I think I may have shared some of this with you, John, when after I created that first email system back in 78, when I came to MIT, I was very interested in pattern analysis because my grandmother would look at your face and she could look at all the patterns in your face and she could categorize whether you had a liver issue, whether you had a kidney issue, whatever issue that she had. So she is very adept at looking at the face and seeing this. So I was very interested in what's called pattern analysis. So most of my research at MIT in one way or another was around pattern analysis. And what it leads you to understand is this is a very powerful part of being an intelligent human being. In fact, it can mean between life and death. A snake is coming at you. Do you run or do you pet it, right? It could be a poisonous snake. Do you eat this mushroom or that mushroom, right? You could get yourself killed. So pattern recognition has been essential to human survival. Those people can recognize certain patterns. They can become great musicians. musicians, right? Others are not so good musicians, right?
Yeah, people see a snake of a particular pattern, and the ones that can recognize, oh, that's the poisonous one. And
Right.
then
Or they run, and then you have this learning process,
Mhm.
right? That became a field that I defined called information cybernetics for my PhD work when I started in 93, which I stopped to go do a company. But during that time, I was creating many, many different pattern recognition techniques for analyzing face recognition, handwriting recognition, document analysis, all these kinds of patterns. And I ended up getting interestingly involved in a competition to automatically categorize my second sort of life with email, to categorize the White House's email. There was a competition in 1993 that was run by the White House and the National Institute of Standards to see if a robot or a machine could take email and automatically bucket it into different categories. And there were 5 publicly traded companies. I was the only student at MIT who was asked to participate. Anyway, I ended up winning that competition, left MIT in the middle to start a company called EchoMail. And EchoMail became the leading company in the world that could automatically read email and sort it for all different companies. And we work with the biggest companies in the world, Nike and Citigroup and American Express. All these companies would send us their email. We would analyze it, route it, respond to it. Anyway, it was basically AI.
I've seen that you've had like framed newspaper clips around the office here. So they called you Dr. Email back then.
Yeah. So before there was any issue about who invented email, I was known as Dr. Email, and we should probably do a whole video on that, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You guys will see that I've been involved in email through the invention of it, and then through the area of handling the problem that email created. A lot of people started getting inbound stuff, and everyone became secretaries, and people had to sort email. When Bill Clinton was in office, he ran this competition, which I ended up winning. And the goal was, prior to the invention of EchoMail, the way people handled email was they hired people to do it. Bill Clinton had a lot of interns. Probably shouldn't use the word interns with Bill Clinton, but anyway, he would have had to hire lots of interns to handle his email. So anyway, what ended up happening to me was I was observing emails coming, and I remember staying awake a couple of nights as I was building this technology, and I saw all these emails coming in from our new customers, Nike. And as you saw these emails come in, you could see there was clear patterns in how people wrote, wherever they were. And you could see human beings were frankly robots. Nike had just done an ad campaign about selling a shoe, and all over the world, people would write in very similar languages. It was frankly easy for me to bucket them. And that's why I came to the conclusion. And then once in a while, you'd see very thoughtful emails. But most people would just react to these emails thinking they were being hip. And so I remember going to, this was 1994 or 1995, and I remember going to bed later that evening, and I had a very interesting dream. And the dream was I was sitting across a table with something that looked just like me, but I knew that was a robot.
You have a dream about the Terminator or something like that?
Something like that.
It's like the invasion of the body snatchers or something like that.
Right. And the question that went through my mind in the dream, I'll never forget, it was like, okay, one day there will be beings that will probably be able to talk, probably able to do everything a human does, even in fact feel, right, with their hands, tactile senses, smell. The question will become, when they can do all those things, they look, act like you, what is the difference between you and that robot? And it was a very powerful question, and I'll share with you the answer I came to, which is, we'll have the conversation. But the real question is, what is the difference between me and one day that thing, like you said, that can do everything I can do? Let's say it can write, it can maybe even eat, right? It can talk to you. What will be that difference?
Yeah, which answers Peter's question here, because his comment about organic machines was apparently in response to my commenting on that. So yeah, when you get a machine that if you could literally build a machine out of organic material to do all the things a human do, that's when you really start to blur the lines, right, conceptually.
Yeah, and there's a field called synthetic biology, which may be able to do stuff like that. Okay, so just put into perspective that one day you could have something that looks exactly like you. And there's a new field called affective computing. One of my former advisors at MIT, Roz Picard, is sort of the leader. Affective, you may want to just type that in, affective, AFFECTIVE. Affective computing is to compute emotions. So could you actually put emotions into machines? Affective computing. So anyway, we're headed in this direction. And anyone who thinks we're not going to be able to create a machine, organic or silicon, carbon-based, that can probably look like you're going to be behind the times. So the question really becomes, what is going to be the difference between one day, let's say across from you, John, there's sitting there something that looks like John Medlar, has the same beard, has the same quirks, wears the same things, smells like you, maybe even eats like you. What is it between you and that robot? Okay. And before I go there, I wanted to play for people. There was a recent event about a year ago looking at the most 15 humanoid robots. And I want to play for you what the author considered to be 2 of those robots. Okay. He considered the top 2. So I'm going to just play this, and you'll see the quality of robots that are are, and this was a year ago, okay?
Number 2, Sophia. One of the most uncanny humanoid robots with a credible AI system has got to be the Hanson's Robotics Sophia. Built in Hong Kong and debuting at the South by Southwest Festival in 2016, Sophia looks more human than AI. Sophia is a social robot who uses her AI to recognize human faces, conversation, and even form relationships. Famously, she even made a late-night television appearance, told jokes to the audience, and acknowledged that they were laughing. And while she's coming up with jokes and icebreakers with machine learning, rather than off the top of her head, she knows exactly when and how to say them. And her human-like facial expressions reflect each situation she finds herself in. But Sophia can understand and answer very basic questions like, what are you looking at? And is the door open or closed? And while she may not yet understand everything she's saying, she can use her dialogue system to correctly piece together what to say, which is better than most humans can do. Sophia has become so popular and groundbreaking that she became a legal citizen of Saudi Arabia just after her release.
Robots.
We're sure they're happy to have her. Number 1, Geminoid DK. Next time you're walking down the busy city streets, you could be crossing paths with this most human of looking robots. His name, Geminoid DK. Okay, maybe not the coolest or most practical name in the world, but Geminoid DK is going to have you fooled at first, second, and maybe even third glances. And even then, you may be asking yourself if this is a human pretending to be a robot rather than the other way around. Rest easy, because this guy is, at the end of the day, just a bucket of nuts and bolts, albeit very well put together nuts and bolts. Geminoid DK is the next generation of the Geminoid series of ultra-realistic androids from Kokoro, a Japanese firm, and Osaka University roboticist Hiroshi Ishiguro. And believe it or not, the DK was designed to look just like Professor Heinrich Scharf of Aalborg at the University of Denmark. Now we can't even tell the two apart. Robot Impersonator cost about 200 grand and was created in order to study people's reactions to lifelike robots. Because frankly, unless you're one of the world's top robotics teams, it's not something many of us have grown accustomed to just yet. Kind of a strange life purpose for the Geminoid DK. Then you have to ask, is something like this even alive?
So anyway, I wanted to just quickly play that because it gives you an idea, a very glimpse of where things are going. And it's just going to keep getting better and better and better as, human beings focus on this kind of stuff. So the question again comes, what is the difference between a human and a robot? I think the way to ask this question, and everyone needs to sort of close their eyes and perhaps think about this question. Have you ever had to deal with death, or have you ever had to deal with the loss of love? And have you ever had to consider yourself as not just as a part of you, but as a part of something bigger? And to me, this is where the question really begins. Because if people haven't had to think about death, they haven't had to think about the loss of love, or they haven't had to think about themselves as part of something larger, or make that as a part of their questions, whether they're working at some place and thinking they're just there to do a task, or are they part of something larger and they understand that, then basically they're a robot. That's my definition. If you haven't had to deal with these questions, more than likely you're a robot. And there could be an opportunity that a robot may actually be a human. Okay? There could be a being that is in a silicon-based structure, but it may ask these questions actually. And this is a very deeply philosophical, religious, spiritual question too.